Howdy do, squirrels. Squirrels and squirrelettes. Let's read. We were at part 2 of whatever chapters. Maybe just 2 or 3. Anyway, second part. Tommy was establishing the happiest of relationships with Major Bletchley. Brought down some golf clubs with you, didn't you, Meadows? Tommy pleaded guilty. I can tell you, my eyes don't miss much. Splendid, we must have a game together. Ever played on the links here? Tommy replied in the negative. They're not bad at all. Bit on the short side, perhaps, but lovely view over the sea and all that. And never very crowded. Look here, what about coming along with me this morning? We might have a game. Thanks very much, I'd like it. Must say I'm glad you've arrived, remarked Bletchley as they were trudging up the hill. Too many women in that place. Gets on one's nerves. Glad I've got another fella to keep me in countenance. You can't count Cayley, the man's a kind of walking chemist's shop. Talks of nothing but his health and not the treatment he's... wait a minute. The man's kind of walking. Talks of nothing but his health and the treatment he's tried and the drugs he's taken. If he threw away all his little pill boxes and went out for a good 10-mile walk every day, he'd be a different man. The only other male in the place is Von Denham, and to tell you the truth, Meadows, I'm not too easy in my mind about him. No, said Tommy. No, you take my word for it, this refugee business is dangerous. If I had my way, I'd intern the lot of them, safety first. A bit drastic, perhaps. Not at all. War's war, and I've got my suspicions of Master Carl. For one thing, he's clearly not a Jew. Then he came over here just a month, only a month, mind you, before war broke out. That's a bit suspicious. Tommy said invitingly, then you think spying? That's his little game. But surely there's nothing of great military or naval importance hereabouts. Ah, old man, that's what where the artfulness comes in. If he were anywhere near Plymouth or Portsmouth, he'd be under suspicion. In a sleepy place like this, nobody bothers. But it's on the coast, isn't it? The truth of it is the government is a great deal too easy with these enemy aliens. Anyone who cared could come over here and pull a long face and talk about their brothers in concentration camps. Look at that young man, arrogance in every line of him. He's a Nazi, that's what he is, a Nazi. What we really need in this country is a witch doctor or two, said Tommy pleasantly. Eh? What's that? To smell out the spies, Tommy explained gravely. Ah, very good that. Smell 'em out, yes, of course. Further conversation was brought to an end, for they had arrived at the clubhouse. Tommy's name was put down as a temporary member. He was introduced to the secretary, a vacant-looking elderly man, and the subscription duly paid. Tommy and the Major started on their round. Tommy was a mediocre golfer. He was glad to find that his standard of play was just about right for his new friend. The Major won by 2 up and 1 to play, a very happy state of events. Good match, Meadows, very good match. You had bad luck with that mashie shot. Just turned off at the last minute. We must have a game fairly often. Come along and I'll introduce you to some of the fellows. Nice lot on the whole. Some of them inclined to be rather old women, if you know what I mean. Here's Haydock. You'll like Haydock. Retired naval Walla. Wallah. has that house on the cliff next door to us. He's our local ARP warden. Commander Haydock was a big, hardy man with a weather-beaten face. With a weather-beaten face. Lord have mercy. Intense blue eyes and a habit of shouting most of his remarks. He greeted Tommy with friendliness. So you're going to keep Bletchley countenance at Sansucci? He'll be glad of another man. Rather swamped by female society, eh, Bletchley? I'm not much of a ladies' man, said Major Bletchley. Nonsense, said Haydock. Not your type of lady, my boy, that's it. Old boarding house pussies, nothing to do but gossip and knit. You're forgetting Miss Perenna, said Bletchley. Ah, Sheila, she's an attractive girl, all right. Regular beauty, if you ask me. I'm a bit worried about her, said Bletchley. What? What do you mean? Have a drink, Meadows. What's yours, Major? The drinks ordered and the men settled on the veranda of the clubhouse. Haydock repeated his question. Major Bletchley said with some violence, that German chap, she's seeing too much of him. Getting sweet on him, you mean? That's bad. Of course, he's a good-looking young chap in his way, but it won't do. It won't do, Bletchley. We can't have that sort of thing. Trading with the enemy, that's what it amounts to. These girls. Where's their proper spirit? Plenty of decent young English fellows about. Bletchley said Sheila's a queer girl. She gets old sullen fits when she'll hardly speak to anyone. Spanish blood, said the commander. Her father was half Spanish, wasn't he? Don't know. It's a Spanish name, I should think. The commander glanced at his watch. About time for the news. We'd better go and listen to it. The news was I don't know what that is. Oh, Lord. The news was meager that day. My eyes are crazy. It's spelled differently. The news was meager that day. Little more in it than had been already in the morning papers. After commenting with approval on the latest exploits of the Air Force, first-rate chaps, brave as lions, the commander went on to develop his own pet theory that sooner or later the Germans would attempt a landing at Leehampton itself. His argument being that it was such an unimportant spot. Not even an anti-aircraft gun in the place. Disgraceful. The argument was not developed, for Tommy and the Major had to hurry back to lunch at Sansucci. Haydock extended a cordial invitation to Tommy to come and see his little place. Smuggler's Rest. Marvelous view, my own beach, every kind of handy gadget in the house. Bring him along, Bletchley. It was settled that Tommy and Major Bletchley should come in for drinks on the evening of the following day. And Part 3. After lunch was a peaceful time at Sansucci. Mr. Cayley went to have his rest, with the devoted Mrs. Cayley in attendance. Mrs. Blenkinsop was conducted by Miss Minton to a depot to pack and address parcels for the front. Mr. Meadows strolled gently out into Leehampton and along the front. He bought a few cigarettes, stopped at Smith's to purchase the latest number of Punch. Then, after a few minutes of apparent irresolution, he entered a bus bearing the legend Old Pier. The old pier was at the extreme end of the promenade. That part of Leehampton was known to house agents as the least desirable end. It was Wesley Hampton and poorly thought of. Tommy paid two D and strolled up the pier. It was a flimsy and weather-worn affair with a few moribund, moribund, penny in the slot machines placed at far distant intervals. There was no one on it but some children running up and down and screaming in voices that matched quite accurately the screaming of the gulls, and one solitary man sitting on the end fishing. Mr. Meadows pulled up to the end and hate these things on my eyes. Strolled up to the end and gazed down into the water. Then he asked gently, "Caught anything?" The fisherman shook his head. "Don't often get a bite." Mr. Grant reeled in his line a bit, he said without turning his head. "What about you, Meadows?" Tommy said. "Nothing much to report as yet, sir. I'm digging myself in." "Good, tell me." Tommy sat on an adjacent bollard. Tommy sat on an adjacent bollard, so placed that he commanded the length of the pier. Then he began. "I've gone down quite all right, I think. I gather you've already got a list of the people there?" Grant nodded. "There's nothing to report as yet. I've struck up a friendship with Major Bletchley. We played golf this morning. He seems the ordinary type of retired officer, if anything, a shade too typical. Cayley seems a genuine hypochondriacal invalid. That again would be an easy part to act. He has, by his own admission, been a good deal in Germany during the last few years." "A point," said Grant laconically. "Then there's Von Diemen." "Yes, I don't need to tell you, Meadows. That Von Diemen's the one I'm most interested in." "You think he's in?" Grant shook his head. "No, I don't. As I see it, N couldn't afford to be a German. Not a refugee from Nazi persecution, even? Not even that. We watch, and they know we watch, all the enemy aliens in this country. Moreover, this is in confidence, Beersford, very nearly all enemy aliens between 16 and 60 will be interned. Whether our adversaries are aware of the fact or not, they can at any rate anticipate that such a thing might happen. They would never risk... Oh, Lord have mercy. They would never risk the head of their organization being interned. Did I just say that? No, that was a different one. N, therefore, must be either a neutral or else, and then it's got apparently in parentheses, an Englishman. The same, of course, applies to M. No, my meaning about Von Diemen is this. He may be a link in the chain. N or M may not be at Sanssouci. It may be Karl von Diemen who was there, and through him we may be led to our objective. That does seem to me highly possible. The more so as I cannot very well see that any of the other inmates of Sanssouci are likely to be the person we are seeking." "You've had them more or less vetted, I suppose, sir?" Grant sighed a sharp, quick sigh of vexation. "No, that's just what it's impossible for me to do. I could have them looked up by the department easily enough, but I can't risk it. Beersford, for you see, the rot is in the department itself. One hint that I've got my eye on Sansuchi for any reason, and the organization may be put wise. That's where you come in, the outsider. That's why you've got to work in the dark without help from us. It's our only chance, and I daren't risk. That will help from it's our only chance. Daren't risk alarming them. There's only one person I've been able to check up on. Who's that, sir? Carl von Deni himself. That's easy enough. Routine. I can't have him looked up, not from the Sansuchi angle, but from the enemy alien angle. Tommy asked curiously, and the result? A curious smile came over the other's face. Master Carl is exactly what he says he is. His father was indiscreet, was arrested, and died in a concentration camp. Carl's elder brothers are in camps. His mother died in great distress of mind a year ago. He escaped to England a month before war broke out. Von Deni has professed himself anxious to help this country. His work in a chemical research laboratory has been excellent. Has been excellent and most helpful on the problem of immunizing certain gases and in general decontamination experiments. Tommy said, then he's all right? Not necessarily. Our German friends are notorious for their thoroughness. If von Deni was sent as an agent to England, special care would be taken that his record should be consistent with his own account of himself. There are two possibilities. The whole von Deni family may be parties to the arrangement, not improbable under the painstaking Nazi regime, or else this is not really Carl von Deni, but a man playing the part of Carl von Deni. Tommy said slowly, I see. He added inconsequently, he seems an awfully nice young fellow. Sighing, Grant said, they are. They nearly always are. It's an odd life, this service of ours. We respect our adversaries, and they respect us. You naturally like your opposite number, you know, even when you're doing your best to down him. Throat sore, y'all. There was silence as Tommy thought over the strange anomaly of war. Grant's voice broke into his musings. But there are those for whom we've neither respect nor liking, and those are the traitors within our own ranks. The men who are willing to betray their country and accept office and promotion from the foreigner who has conquered it. Tommy said with feeling, my God, I'm with you, sir. That's a skunk's trick, and deserves a skunk's end, Tommy said incredulously. And there really are these swine? Everywhere, as I told you, in our service, in the fighting forces, on parliamentary benches, high up in the ministries. We've got to comb them out. We've got to, and we must do it quickly. It can't be done from the bottom, the small fry, the people who speak in the parks, who sell their wretched little news sheets. They don't know. Hang on. They don't know who the big bugs are. It's the big bugs we want. They're the people who can do untold damage. And we'll do it unless we're in time. Tommy said confidently, we shall be in time, sir. Grant asked, what makes you say that? Tommy said, you've just said it. We've got to be. The man with the fishing line turned and looked full at his subordinate for a minute or two, taking in a new quiet, resolute line of the jaw. He had a new liking and appreciation of what he saw. He said quietly, "Good man." He went on, "What about the women in this place? Anything strike you as suspicious there? I think there's something odd about the woman who runs it. Mrs. Perina? Yes, don't you know? Yes? You don't know anything about her?" Grant said slowly. "I might see what I could do about checking her antecedents, but as I told you, it's risky." "Yes, better not take any chances. She's the only one who strikes me as suspicious in any way. There's a young mother, a fussy spinster, the hypochondriac's brainless wife." It's me. "And a rather fearsome-looking old Irish woman. All seem harmless enough on the face of it. That's not the lot, is it?" No, ma'am. There's a Mrs. Blankensop arrived 3 days ago." "Well," Tommy said, "Mrs. Blankensop is my wife." "What?" In the surprise of the announcement, Grant's voice was raised. He spun round, sharp anger in his gaze. "I thought I told you, Beresford, not to breathe a word to your wife." "Quite right, sir, and I didn't. If you'll just listen." Succinctly, Tommy narrated what had occurred. He did not dare look at the other. He carefully kept out of his voice the pride that he secretly felt. There was a silence when he brought the story to an end. Then a queer noise escaped from the other. Grant was laughing. He laughed for some minutes. He said, "I take my hat off to the woman. She's 1 in 1,000. "I agree," said Tommy. I'm going to stop there. Just in the middle of things, maybe, who knows. Love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. See you on the streets or tomorrow at 3 bells Eastern. Giveaway time. Giveaway. Love ya. Nighty night.